Welcome back to the table. Today we are taking a look at Bot Factory. This is the newest game from Eagle Gryphon Games. It's on Kickstarter right now as you're watching this. And it is a co-design by Lacerda and Joao Quintela Martins. I believe I've correctly pronounced both of their names, but it is a co-design. A lot of people give Vital a lot of credit, and I'm sure he deserves a lot of credit as well. But it is a co-design, and much like Mercado de Lisboa, this is sort of a pared down version, if you will, of Kanban this time, but in a slightly different way from what I understand. And just to get right to it, Emily is kind of the resident expert here, or fan at least.
Love Kanban.
Yes.
Definitely one of my top games. And David has not played Kanban.
I've never played Kanban. In fact, I've only played a couple Lacerda games, maybe even one Lacerda game in my life, and that was Lisboa.
Need to play more.
We're coming with some different perspectives, and it's unique here because this game is, I think, meant to bring people and give them a little taste of what those games are like, and maybe be a stepping stone.
Yeah, definitely.
It's probably still a pretty big step, but the core ideas of Kanban are all here. Whereas I think in Mercado de Lisboa, it was really just one aspect of the game. So anyway, this is Bot Factory, and as you might have guessed, we're building robots.
Wow.
This is a worker placement game, but it works a little bit differently than at least ones that I've played. And you're going to be building the actual robots here on this board. There are 4 boards in total. This board is where you build them. This board is where you basically collect the parts to build them. Here's where you're going to get projects, because you have to have corresponding projects in order to actually complete a robot to take it.
To know how to build it together.
Exactly. It's kind of like the blueprints, if you will. And then over here is sort of the finance board, which is going to be dictating the value of the robots by the end of the game. As well as some of these contracts here, which allow you to score some points at the end of the game, too.
Yeah, if you're going to be building robots, you want to at least get some money out of them, right?
Exactly, for sure. And then across the bottom of all these boards, and they are put in this order, are all of these worker placement spots that you see here. And it took a minute for me to wrap my head around this.
Yes.
The way these are laid out, it's not just, oh yeah, these are the spots. This order has a significant impact on the game.
So if you're used to Kanban, you'll be familiar with it. But each of them has a different number of spots you can go to, which dictate to what degree you're going to be able to do the actions on that board. So take this one in the middle. You see that if you take the first action spot, you're going to get a bonus of you're going to get a speech bubble, which is one of the currencies in the game. And you'll only be able to take between 1 and 3 movement points. But if you were to take the last spot, you would get between 1 and 6 movement points. So you're just doing the same actions, but way more of them if you take the last spot. However,
there's a big however.
There's a big however, because when we resolve our actions, the person who's going to go first is going to be the person from the left.
Yeah.
So this person who's doing fewer things is actually going to get to take their turn first. So if you're looking at the board and saying, oh, I want that one, and it's in the perfect spot, I'll just take it right away. Well, that person who goes before you is probably going to take it before you can. So by the time it comes to your turn, you're at a point where you're like, this is a completely different board state than what I was expecting or what I thought I would be doing. So I have more to do, but now I've got to set it back up again to where I need it to be.
Yeah, so if you're going to be a little greedy, you might realize that you're not going to get exactly what you want.
Exactly.
The other thing that is important to note here, all of these spaces are connected in that same way. So when we're resolving all of the worker spaces, we start here and go all the way down the board in that order. So if I'm here, I go first, and then it goes all the way down. And then after that round, when we're moving to our next spaces at the beginning of the next round, we do that same order. Whoever's over here furthest is going to get to move first. So back to your example, if I'm here and you're here, you might get more spaces, but I might steal stuff from you. And in the next round, I'm going to be able to basically have first pick of where I'm going before you go.
And it's not just us. So even if you're playing with other players, you've also got Sandra
back
on the
Sandra.
board. And so people who play Kanban will recognize Sandra. She's here to supervise us and make sure we're doing what we're supposed to. I will say she's a lot nicer of a supervisor
in this game than
yes,
Kanban?
she's more of like
that's what I've heard.
People lover, team builder kind of girl.
She sounds a little more judgmental in Kanban.
She is a little
She's evaluating.
stricter.
Yeah.
Here you still there's perks to what she's doing, but she's also, when she's near you, she's gonna be inspecting you, saying like, "Hey David, you know what you're doing?"
And you better be able to say with a speech bubble what you're doing, because if you're in a space trying to take an action and you find yourself there with Sandra, If you don't have a speech bubble, well, you're passing your turn.
Yes.
You're not doing anything. And it's somewhat easy in most cases to sort of manage around that. But as player count increases, it becomes harder and harder to know where Sandra's going to go. Because if I move to, say, this location and Sandra's here, and then the 3 other players go boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Sandra's not moving to the next board on her turn. She's going to
crowded.
move to mine.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, if I don't have any speech bubbles, I've basically wasted my turn.
And Sandra, what she's doing here, she's not really doing mean-spirited things. Basically, everywhere she goes, she's kind of just refreshing things, helping along the factory. But if she's refreshing something before you take your turn, that can really screw you up too. Because you're like, oh, I was going to take this thing, but then Sandra's like, nope, that's been there for too long. We need new stuff coming in. And you're like, oh, Sandra.
Yeah, the worker placement in this, it's less about being, someone taking the spot that you wanted.
Right.
Most worker placement games, the intensity can be like, oh, please don't take that one spot. In this, it's less about that and more about really just trying to wrap your head around the timing.
Situational awareness and timing.
And how it's all going to work and how it's all going to flow. Because in my first play of this, I found myself, well, I'll just go here. And then someone went before me. It was down here on the finances. Mm-hmm. And they did the things before I did. And I was like, oh, well, you really took the steam out of the turn I was about to take.
Yep. An important thing to note is you don't even have to take the action to where you go.
No, you can be that much of a jerk.
Yeah, it's optional. You could just take a space just to take a space, which in lower player counts, it's probably not efficient at all to do that. But in higher player counts, if your plan is just not working and you're like, fine, I'll just take this space so no one else gets it and just continue on next turn.
Yeah, it is interesting. And in this highly active game, let's explain a little bit. How do we make the bots? And this will probably happen a little out of order, but I'll start here where you actually make the bots. When you go to one of these locations, you're either going to be able to place 1, 1 to 2, or 1 to 3 of these bot pieces on these conveyor belts. Now, obviously, if I have a green head, it's going to go at the top of this board, then the torso, then the legs. When you go here with the 1 to 3, if you have 3 pieces, you can put them all out there.
Play them all.
And as you place them, you're going to be getting things immediately. So when you place a piece, if it's 1 or if it's the second piece there, you're going to be able to get 2 speech bubbles. This board serves as the place where you get those things. You're going to be able to spend them here, but you're also going to be able to spend them everywhere in the game. That's 1 or 2. And if you're the person who puts the third piece there, you've completed the robot.
Yay!
Now, it looks simple, right? I took this robot. Well, it is for me because I have a project here for a green robot.
Yes.
So I'm able to put that right there. If I didn't have a project for a green robot in front of me,
you can't finish
I literally can't put that third piece. It is not allowed. But that is effectively what you're doing over here. Now, there are a few other things that are happening. When you go to any of these boards, there's an executive action that you can take. Here, I can spend one of those speech bubbles to go to the spare parts section right here. Mm-hmm. So I can spend 1 speech bubble to take one of the parts that I have. Say I didn't want this green head and go, you know what? I'd rather have the legs for the yellow and take that for a speech bubble. You can do this action as many times as you want on this board, and you can do it before, during, or after your main actions. So I could do that really quick and sneak in here and put the feet on a yellow robot where Emily might have been really gunning for that on the next turn.
Or you could see Blue has the yellow feet already, so he's like, well, now what am I going to do with this yellow feet?
Exactly.
It's useless.
And fast forward a little bit. At the end of the game, you don't want spare parts laying in front of you.
Right.
Spare parts, extra projects, not good. Negative points, in fact. So those are some of the things you're going to be doing here. You're basically building robots, and you'll see there's some bonus spaces here that after you've taken your turn, you can actually use those to grab some parts off of this board, which is generally where you're going to be getting parts.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll remember from Kanban the executive actions. Executive actions, honestly, are a Lacerda classic, is where you're doing these extra little things
that much I know.
With what you're doing. But yeah, the main part, the next board is where you're going to get your parts. So this is where you saw you were going to be using movement spaces, and the movement spaces allow you to either do one of 2 things. You're going to either move this big gear in the middle, so every time you move it, you'll move it 90 degrees. And what's great about that is that as you're taking things off of it, these spots are going to open up. And if at the top there are any empty spaces, you get to decide what you're going to put in that empty space. So I can have like start taking stuff off. There's a bunch of empty spaces, and then when I put them all towards the top, I could just flood it with blue and say blue, 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 blue. So I know people are gonna be building blue robots now because that's all that's on the parts board. Or I could do some variety, or I could say like, specifically I want that yellow head, so let's get a yellow head in here. The other action I can take with the movement points is I can take something off of the bottom. So once these parts are at the bottom of the conveyor belt, I can take them off and put them into my supply.
One move per piece, right?
One move per piece. What's nice is they did put it in this reminder track, which I love, because as you're doing these things, you're like, okay, I moved and I took this and I moved and I took, and you're like,
you might trigger a bonus too that sends you to another board temporarily. So coming back and going, where was I?
Because if I do it one more time and I trigger this one where it says I can spend a speech bubble to put any one of my parts onto the assembly board, then all of a sudden I'm looking and I'm like, okay, I'm going over here. Oh, and he gives me a bonus that gives me a part. Oh, and and I'm like, how many actions did I take? I'm very pleased that they kept this reminder.
Yeah, that is nice. It is a nice touch for sure.
So obviously, again, more movement is better because I can keep doing more stuff. But if I get close, if I'm the first person to do this, I'm primed to take whatever pieces I can already see are out here. So that's just taking parts.
This next board here is where you're going to be getting projects. This is the project board. There's a couple things here. One, obviously, it's projects. I will tell you right now, these things cycle like nobody's business.
Fast. Yeah.
At the end of every round, whenever Sandra's here, the two bottom ones go away. It really recycles through the stack, which is nice because when you have a big stack like that and you're looking for a particular color, it's moving.
Gonna come out.
It's almost moving so fast that you better grab the green one that you need when it's there, because it might be a minute before another one comes out. But when you come here, you're going to be either taking one or two of the projectiles. Now, there's a couple cool bonuses here. But the first two bonuses here is if you happen to take this tile, you're going to be able to get a speech bubble. And again, just like here, if you take this tile, you can spend a speech bubble to actually put a piece over on this conveyor belt.
Yeah, which would require you to already have a part for you to really use it.
Exactly.
But that's like the part of getting these things efficiently.
Yeah, and kind of sneaking things in over here on the conveyor belts before someone else gets there on their turn. And then down here, there's some universal robot parts. On your turn, the executive action here is you can discard any two projectiles that you have in order to take any one of these. These are the head, torso, and the legs that can be used for any of these robots. You could use them with these bonuses. You could use them when you take your actions over here. It just gives you some flexibility, not to mention towards the end of the game, getting rid of some of those excess projects that you have that you don't want for negative points.
So they're not negative points.
And then that brings us to the finance board.
Because at the end of the game, if you have robots, you want to make sure they're worth something.
Yeah.
So the finance board allows you to spend between 1 or 2 or all the way up to 1 and 4 speech bubbles. And the thing about this that I didn't realize till playing it was you can take this 1 to 4 spot when you only have 2 speech bubbles.
Yeah.
The reason being, again, these bonuses, if you go up to the top here, you're going to spend a speech bubble to up the market value of a certain color of robot. And if you go past one of these 2 lines, you're going to take that bonus immediately. So I might do that, take a bonus of taking a project card, and take the project that gives me a speech bubble. Now I have an extra speech bubble to spend, and I can keep doing these kinds of things to combo to like be getting more speech bubbles, even though I started my turn with only 2. Get 4 by the end of my turn, so I'm actually spending all 4.
Yeah. In my first game of this, the number of times where I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to get speech bubbles soon, and then I did a turn like that, and really before I knew it, I'm like, oh, I got a couple speech bubbles. I wasn't even planning on it. And again, those bonuses, just like the other bonuses we've outlined already, are really where this game can be won or lost. That top bonus, as you can see right here, is again to place another piece over here. The game really kind of revolves around this, obviously. This is the core of making the robots. So there's bonuses on each board that sort of supply that and allow a player to do that on their turn, even if they're not right here with the conveyor belts.
Which can be unexpected. But so you can spend the speech bubble as many times as you want to keep upping the market value. At the bottom, you can also take contracts. So you're going to spend different number of speech bubbles, either 3, 2, or 1, depending on what level client contract you're taking. And so say I was taking something from the second row, I would spend 2 of my speech bubbles. One of them is going to go to mark which one I'm taking, and I'm going to take the first spot. So this one is worth 7 and 5. I'm taking the 7 spot. The same person can't take both of the contract spots, so it does allow people a little bit more flexibility there. But what this is saying is that by the end of the game, I'm going to have 2 red robots to give over.
You've signed a contract.
I've said we will be making 2 red robots, and if I do not make those red robots...
Then you're in breach of contract.
I am paying that money back. But the nice thing is that they do have these row bonuses as well.
Yes.
So like if you're going for the higher ones, you're going to get a whole 7 bonus, which is honestly quite a few points. Like it's worth more than the starting value of robots.
Oh, for sure. This game, I mean, again, just to fast forward, the game I've played, I was in the 50s. Ryan played with me, and he was, I think, was in the 60s, 40s sometimes.
Yeah.
It's so 7 points.
Yeah.
That's not insignificant amount of points when you're talking about the sort of score. Now, you might be able to score a lot higher than I did.
Well, I don't think scores are going to get too much higher because I really think it's about efficiency, right? So like it's not about scoring the highest, it's about being able to do it quickly and efficiently so that way by the time I make game end, I have just enough more than you do because I've done it just that much better.
For sure, and that is how it felt. This is a game of efficiencies. We've talked about that with a lot of games before, and I think you've played a lot more Lacerdas. That's what a lot of his game designs
They're very
are about.
tight.
And I can tell you, as someone who's not played one but played this, I was feeling that immediately.
Yeah,
the efficiencies of like, oh, okay, I might be able to do this, and not only those efficiencies to maximize your score, but those efficiencies to minimize your opponent's score.
Yes.
Because there's definitely a lot of that going on in these games. This is going to be a game where you might make a decision not really about what you're trying to do, but maybe jumping in the way of another
what someone
player.
else is doing.
Because
right.
if someone signed up for a contract and you're able to take the last yellow robot so you know they're not going to be able to fulfill one of their contracts, that might be a better move than whatever 4-point move you were going to make or something like that.
Well, and there are times too, even where you're like, should I put something on the assembly line? Oh, but I see he has the finishing 2 pieces. I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to keep holding out my piece. I know there's no more on the parts board, and I'm just going to wait it out and keep this for a little while so he can't make his robot.
Yeah, it is a very interesting and interactive game. I do want to spend a little bit more time just talking in general about this turn order and the worker spaces. If we were on these spaces like this, your player right here, let's say, when it's the round is beginning, you're going to basically move your worker, because this is where they were the last round.
Yep.
You're going to move your worker to another space. If it's my turn and I'm first in the order here, I'm going to have to move to another board, so I can't go here again. I can go to any of these boards. Now, you'll note I can't go here.
Yep, because I've already taken it.
Because it's filled. You can't go to those spaces. So say I wanted to go to the space. I mean, obviously, I'd want to get the 2 anyway. In fact, you probably wouldn't be on the 1.
But Sandra is also taking the highest space over here in finance.
Exactly.
So you're like, oh, do I want to
So
go?
I'd go here, and everyone's just going to move their pieces. So I've gone here. Then this person's going to go, then purple, then Sandra. Now, Sandra's just going to move to the next board.
Yep.
So if, say, Emily moved over here, and then Sandra goes.
Sandra's going to go here.
Now Sandra's right there with Emily. So Emily better have a speech bubble to do some fast talking with Sandra, or she's not going to be able to take her turn. Now, like I said, you can plan for that fairly easy to look for that. But had someone gone here and someone gone here in a 4-player game, Sandra might have skipped and jumped onto this person. So you can definitely manipulate Sandra a little bit, probably more for sure in a 4-player game than certainly than a 2-player game. And there is a big difference in a 2-player game. In fact, you cannot go actively to the board where Sandra currently is positioned.
She can move to you.
But she can definitely move to you and spoil your turn. So you're all going to move, and then in that sort of new turn order, if you will, you're going to take those actions and lay down. And that's really the process of the game. You're going to do that over and over and over, with maintenance in between. At the end of each round, there's a little maintenance that takes place. You're going to take the bottom 2 projects off the board, cycle those down. You're going to take any robots that had been completed, and you'll know that because there'll be 3 tiles there. You're going to remove those tiles, and then the value of that robot is going to go back down. So that takes those value tracks up and down throughout the game. So what that means is not only is the value fluctuating, which is important, but it opens those bonuses up because they can come back up below that line, and you can pop it up over there and get that bonus again. And I can't stress enough how important to really, truly master this game getting those bonuses is.
It's so important because you're thinking to yourself like, okay, I'm going to go to finance. That's not really doing anything for me right now. But actually, if I can get the bonuses, I'm suddenly getting another piece. I'm putting it out. Because I put it out the assembly, I'm getting another piece. And then I'm also able to put out another thing out. You're like all of a sudden doing all this stuff and someone's looking at like, what? How did they
I was
going
going
to
to build that
what
yellow.
Are they doing?
Yeah, I had planned to come here and you can't just say, I've got my things, I'm coming here to build a robot. Because people are going to be doing those bonuses all around you and your head is going to be spinning. So you're going to be doing this until one player has built five robots of any color, or any one of the robots of any particular color is completely out. And there's going to be 4 of each color in a 3 and 4 player game. 1 and 2, I believe you just take 1 away, so there's 3 robots of each color. And that's it. At the end of the game, you're basically going to be looking at those contracts and the values of your robots, adding that along with, I think, some leftover...
2 to 1 for speech bubbles.
2 to 1 on speech bubbles, and then a lot of your excess projects and parts are negative points.
The other thing to note about projects and parts is that you have a max of 5. So when we do maintenance, if you have more than 5, you're just getting rid of them for nothing back.
You're probably also not playing the most efficient game in the world.
You probably are not. But it makes things like the executive actions much more important because then I might take this executive action where I can discard 2 projects to get a universal part. Or we didn't mention, but the executive action on the parts board is to discard 3 to get 1 from the top. Which
can be valuable.
Yeah, it seems like a bad deal. You're like 3 for 1. That seems bad. But the top can be great because you might be saying, oh, shoot, I needed that yellow head and it's at the top up there. I don't want to wait to put it in and then move it and then take it out.
Well, especially because there's lots of other players going between now and then.
Exactly.
So yeah, you could spend 1 to 4 actions to just take tiles, move, take another tile, and then you have all these tiles that you didn't really care about, and then just trade them in for the one that you really, really wanted. The one other thing we didn't mention is sort of the benefits of Sandra. She does a thing in all of these spaces on her turn too. So when we go through here, we're going to lay her down and she's going to take her action. Her action at the various spots is effectively to kind of refill things and recycle things. On this board, she's going to change out the spare parts because if no one's taken those, maybe better spare parts are available. Here, she's going to refill this track. So she's basically going to go in a certain order and refill the empty spaces. Here, she's going to cycle it just like maintenance. These 2 go away and they come down. Again, that happens so frequently. You're going to stop and think, are we doing this too often?
I know, right?
It really happens a lot. And then over here, she's literally going to just take the lowest value robot, and even if it's a tie,
that's so nice.
And move that up. What's interesting about that is she can take that bonus away from you. Like if you were wanting to get those bonuses on those 3 before it went over line, and all 3 of them just went up over that bonus, that is not a fun thing.
But it's also an interesting, timing thing because when you're thinking like, okay, Sandra's here in projects. I know she's going to move into finance next round. Maybe this round I should go into finance before she's going to move next time so that way I can like push things up just enough. So like if they were like this, I'd want one of them to be staggered, right?
Yeah.
So that Sandra pushes everything else up and then my contracts or my robots are worth more at the end.
Yeah,
there's just so many little things going on.
There's some interesting strategies. In my first play, I built a green robot, so I thought, I'll just get a bunch of green robot contracts. You don't want to do that because you have to assign those robots per contract, and there's only a limited number. So if I took a lot of green contracts, I have to get all the green robots to get them.
Which can become impossible at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if someone else takes one, then I'm
like,
probably
I can't
done.
do this.
So I would be careful. Personally, I'd be careful about taking those. But again, it's a timing thing because I'm not going to do that quite yet. And then all of a sudden, Emily jumps in on the 7-point value of the contract, and then I'm starting to sweat it out.
Yep.
So that is Bot Factory. We've given you a very quick overview of how the game plays, but hopefully we've given you, better yet, an idea of kind of what's in store with the experience.
Yeah.
This is a light, very easy game to teach. It is a fast-playing game and mechanically quite simple. But the depth of it and the timing with these worker placement spots is really what I think starts to not necessarily melt your brain in this game, but it gives you a taste of what that feels like when you're playing a game like Kanban. You have these moments
where you're like, you're just like, it clicks. You're like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Should I do this because it'll give me these opportunities? Or should I do that because it'll set me up later or it'll hurt David? there's like these tiny little intricacies that start to click together, which you feel a lot in Kanban. And so I really think this did a great job of just distilling down to those key moments that you love from Kanban and saying, what if we got a faster play? What if we made it more accessible? Here you go, Bot Factory. And yeah, I think they really pulled that off.
So my question for you, as a veteran Kanban player, would you say would you characterize this as a good stepping stone to
definitely.
Kanban?
Yeah, if there was anybody who was hesitant about Kanban, but was like, I think I'm interested in playing, I'd say, let's just really quick play Bot Factory. Like, let's just get a round of Bot Factory out. It'll take us maybe an hour, and then you can say, that was interesting to me or it wasn't. Because if they say, that wasn't interesting,
then you know you
then I'm
don't
like,
play
okay, I'm not
Kanban,
going to invest
for sure.
in getting Kanban on the story. But if they were so like, oh, that was kind of interesting, I'm going to be like, cool. Now let me show you Kanban.
She just has it waiting in the wings. Oh yeah, and I would add to that. I think this could be played with just about anyone. I don't know anyone in my various gaming groups that I wouldn't be able to sit down and teach this to. Mm-hmm. Even if we never played Kanban after that, I think this game offers some things to those players. And even if you're a player, I think as a Kanban fan, you can get this to the table more with a much wider range of people for sure, which is a really nice bonus. So
and
anyway,
again, it's like it's thematic. It's easy to see what you're doing. The artwork, I think they even made it a little bit like.
I love it. I mean, it is
friendlier.
cartoony and friendly, but I genuinely love the way the components look, especially the robots. But if you have any questions at all, please make them in the comments below. We will definitely get down there and answer them. And as always, until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then. Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.